No more thin or fat shots. No more hitting the ball too high or hitting the ground first. That is exactly the topic of today's video, where we'll help you fix these issues. And accordingly, I would like to give you a warm welcome, as always. It's great that you've tuned in here again. Today is all about making really good contact. And what it actually takes for really good contact, for consistently good contact. That's exactly what I want to go into today, because that is, as I said, today's topic. Let's go. Have a good game. Yes, that is definitely a very successful start, I would say. The ball is sitting perfectly right in the middle of the fairway, exactly where you want it to be. Now, if you want to consistently hit truly repeatable and reliable good shots, there are three important things you need to focus on. You need low point control. You have to be able to know where your club hits the ground and why your club hits the ground there. Furthermore, you must be able to control your left arm, because with the left arm, you control the radius of the swing arc. And the third point is your head, that it should move as little as possible. And that really requires having just the right amount of turn, the correct amount of tilt, and the proper amount of extension in your movement. And that's exactly what I want to take a little more time to go into more detail about today, so we can really understand each part. So, the first point of today is low point control. It's simply about where your club hits the ground and how you can ensure that your club consistently hits the right spot. Because the most common mistake, why thin, meaning balls hit too high, or fat shots, balls hit too early, occur, is certainly a low point that is too early and too deep. For all right-handed golfers, this means that the low point is to the right of the ball, that the club is already on its upward movement towards the ball. And you can avoid all of that relatively simply by paying attention to where your upper swing center, your breastbone, your sternum is placed, because this point is responsible for where your club hits the ground. This point, as I said, is responsible for where your club touches the ground. And this point simply has to be positioned correctly. At the latest, at impact, the sternum, the breastbone, must be positioned to the left of the ball. I prefer to take care of all that during the setup. What does that mean? I start with my breastbone slightly to the left of the ball. What does a little mean? A little means 10 to maybe even 12 centimeters to the left of the ball. And the only task I have now is to ensure that this point always stays to the left of the ball. And that's actually relatively easy, I'd say, if the ball position is right. And that's also a very, very important point. I like to see my players have the ball slightly to the right of center. However, I definitely do not want the ball to be positioned left of center, because if it is, your sternum, your breastbone, and your upper swing center will be to the right in relation to the ball. This increases the risk of hitting the ground before you actually strike the ball, which can lead to both thin and fat shots. So please always pay attention, point number one, to the correct ball position and to your sternum, your breastbone, which should be positioned to the left of the ball. Second shot on the par 4. Following that impressive 300-meter drive, there are only 50 meters remaining, and I have a lob wedge in my hand. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And there it is, the first birdie chance of the day. As always, I ask everyone to always repair pitch marks, including those left by others. After that, you should look at the ball's target line. You can definitely feel, right here, whether the ball will break in one direction or the other. Today, I'm only feeling it very, very slightly. So I'm going to aim the ball relatively centrally, right down the middle. The only in-swing thought I really have is that my left shoulder should always feel like it's staying forward. Because if my shoulders stay parallel to the target line, then my swing path stays neutral. And I don't have to compensate for a bad swing path with the club face. And that's exactly what putting is all about, really. The putt here is actually relatively long, requiring a bit of focus, and that's a really solid 2-putt for par. And with that, I've finished the first hole. Arriving at the second hole, a par 3, which is about, how far is it? 145 meters. The second task now awaits me, because you should now be able to control the low point by controlling your sternum. The second question, or the second task, is now, how you manage to actually hit the ground, because that is also a very, very important point. And in order to hit the ground, you need a steady head. The head should move neither to the right nor to the left, nor up or down. And your head should stay as still as possible throughout the entire swing. And if you're able to keep your head still, then you need a straight left arm. And that's exactly what these 2 points are about now. It takes a steady head and a straight left arm. Please write in the comments below, what do you think you have to do to keep your head still? Do you have to turn? Do you have to tilt? Or do you have to stand up? Please write it in the comments below right now. Stop the video for a second and comment right now below what you have to do. In my opinion, I'd like to reveal it right away. You actually need all 3 things. You have to turn as well as tilt, as well as stand up. Because if the ratio of these 3 things is right, then your head stays still. Most of my golf students try to keep their head still by moving as little as possible. But then the backswing is usually limited, and the whole thing is then often at the expense of distance. That in turn means you'll have a massive loss of distance, and that must be avoided at all costs. Instead, I'd like to ask you to try to turn. That's rotation, that's body rotation. Both in the backswing and in the downswing, try to bring in the right amount of tilt. That's tilting. And try to bring the right amount of extension into your golf swing. And if these 3 things fit together, then your head will stay completely still. Because the head is also responsible for where your sternum lands at impact and whether you're able to make ground contact in the right spot. And to get ground contact at all, you need a constant radius, please. Of course, if my head goes down or up, my radius is no longer constant. But your radius is just as inconsistent if the left arm, for all right-handed golfers, bends during the backswing and straightens, or stays bent during the downswing. So the last point, which is also incredibly important, if you want to hit the ball consistently well and avoid both thin and fat shots, is that your left arm should really always stay straight throughout the entire swing. In other words, from the very start of your swing all the way through to the finish, keeping your left arm straight is key. The downswing in a golf swing takes 0.25 seconds, and that is a really, really short time. As short as a blink of an eye. In that time, you can't feel what you're doing, but please check yourself at the end in your final position to see if your left arm is still straight. And that's exactly what I'd like to demonstrate now. It's a very narrow, short par 3 here. I have an 8 iron in my hand, and I'm making sure that my left arm stays straight. So that's another decent chance, though not exactly a guaranteed birdie. The putt breaks from right to left. It should be 3 to 4%. That in turn means I'm aiming 3 fingers to the right of the center of the hole. Not a bad putt, but it just won't go into the hole. So that's another par on my scorecard. And with that, I'd like to finish by thanking you for watching. As always, please don't forget to click the subscribe button, because that's the only way you'll be notified when a new video is online. The last hole of the day is a short par 3, 142 meters over water, and I've chosen a 9 iron. And I'll pay special attention to positioning my sternum correctly, keeping my head as still as possible, and making sure my left arm stays as long as possible. Because only then am I able to consistently set the low point in the right place. And that is exactly what today's video is all about. Yeah, very good contact. I hope you were able to see that clearly. And the ball is a bit long. It's at the back of the fringe, but that's what today is all about. It was, in my opinion, hit very, very cleanly. To wrap things up, there's one more special topic, because now it's about what the problem is when you hit fat shots or thin shots during a chip, a short approach shot. Because usually it's because the radius isn't quite right. And if you're someone who likes to top the ball, hitting it low towards the green, then in the future, please try to lift your club a bit more. Specifically, the club head, because that way your club comes in a bit steeper, more from top to bottom. And if you're someone who tends to get stuck in the grass a bit, then please remember to move your club head as close to the ground as possible, because that will make your club glide more over the ground. Everything that was important before, a steady head, a long left arm, a correctly positioned sternum, also applies to chipping. So here too, please pay attention to the ball position first, and then make sure you shift your weight slightly to the left, so that you always have ground contact to the left of the ball. I've opted for a 9-iron, because this short chip and run shot is just perfect here. I wish you a very nice evening, have a great game, and I hope to see you again next week, because that's when the next golf technique video will be released on my channel.